Spiritual warriors, welcome. And I want to say welcome back, but I guess hopefully you're saying that to me. But here we are, spiritual warrior discussions, warriorship discussions with the books of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And I hope all of you who may be following the Kartik for this month, and it ends on Sunday, are having a blessed, wonderful experience of remembering the Lord and endeavoring to love Him more and more. And speaking of love, tonight we're beginning a new chapter. I like to call it a new adventure. We're going to Spiritual Warrior 2. We've been there if you've been around a while. And if you're new, it's a fantastic book. Spiritual Warrior 2, Transforming Lust into Love. And as I've said, you can get Bhakti Tirtha Swami's books at Krishna.com store or the website of the press, harinamapress.org. All right, so we're going to go, as I said, Spiritual Warrior 2, Chapter 7, entitled Loving Our Neighbors. And what led me to that chapter, you might ask, because we've been through a number of chapters in Spiritual Warrior 2. But if you recall, or you've been here, the chapter we just completed was in Spiritual Warrior 4, Choosing Love Over Fear. How many are in the chat room?
3.
3. Okay. I still feel like I want to be like in the classroom and ask if any of you out there recall any points that may have made an impression on your mind from the chapter Choosing Love Over Fear. And I won't wait at this moment, but I'm hoping if it comes up, you would make a statement. I recall this, or this I remember, and it helped me, it didn't help me, or I tried to practice, or I became more mindful. This is, important as we come together week after week. And as I'm endeavoring to serve my spiritual master to the best of my ability at this time by reading his books, which have techniques, technologies, so that we can become strong spiritual warriors. So if you recall any points from that chapter that made an impression on you in any way, what I did, I sort of looked back before I came, and one statement that I recall, I chose to kind of hold on to, is he stated that to the extent that we fail to embrace love, we will simultaneously create and maintain a culture of fear. Another one was love cannot develop sufficiently in the presence of fear. I think you can understand that. And the one more I wanted to bring out was, he states, we must create a strategy to protect ourselves and raise our consciousness. Raise our consciousness in order to alleviate some of this extensive fear. And one strategy that came to my mind is to decide to be a spiritual warrior and then practice what is being given to you. Bhakti Tirtha Swami states, I want to do a little run through on this spiritual warriorship. I don't have a photogenic mind to recall it all, but I will. And when he states about spiritual warriorship, that spiritual warriors are unconventional. We do not fight with conventional weapons. We do not fight on conventional battlegrounds. And we do not fight for conventional objectives. He defines it himself in Spiritual Warrior 3, Soul is for the Heart in Difficult Times, on page 10. He tells us, Bhakti Tirtha Swami tells us, the true spiritual warrior strives to master the weapons. Now remember, we just stated that spiritual warrior do not fight with conventional weapons when you think of a warrior or fighter. But the weapons of a spiritual warrior are love, humility, compassion, faith, and self-knowledge. And we do not fight on the conventional battleground, he tells us. What is our battleground? Our battleground is the realm of human consciousness. And what do we do there? We wage war against ignorance and lust that now pervades human society. And the importance that self-knowledge, as you have the knowledge, you can share it to others. That's why he's given us these books with the technology. As like Krishna gave us Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada gave us Bhagavad Gita translated so nicely, Srimad Bhagavatam and all the other books. So you can gain knowledge, and of course then your faith will increase. And then when you're battling different consciousnesses, especially those in ignorance, you'll be able to win your battle. Now, he mentions objective. We do not fight for conventional objective. What is our objective? It's a civilization where people live in harmony with each other and with God. Okay? So, and in order to do that, what do? We have to develop our consciousness so that we can share our understanding with others. So this spiritual warrior concept is really to help us to become grounded in understanding who we really are as spiritual beings. And if you've been listening through the years, it's 2 years this month, by the way. Jai, thank you, Gurudev, thank you, Lord. You must want this to continue because it's going on. And I just pray that you're getting something to help your life, your spiritual life expand, and you to become a strong spiritual warrior. Because again, the concept is to help us to become grounded in understanding who we are as spiritual beings. It's to help us cope with life in trying times. And I'm sure these times are trying, but we can cope with them with the knowledge and the techniques and technologies we've been getting from these books. And it's also, this concept is also to help us use those spiritual weapons we just spoke of to battle the tide of depression and anxiety and feelings of hopelessness sweeping our society. And also, it's to help us develop an internal positive dialogue for making the mind your best friend. Doesn't that sound worthwhile being? So before I get into tonight's chapter, I also want to read some points from Prabhupada's books where he speaks of love, because this is what is, we've been talking about love for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we've been guided to choose love over fear, because that fear can settle in. But so that's why we want to try and talk some more about love. As I said, I spent many weeks in transforming lust into love. So if you go back, I'm sorry I can't tell you exactly the dates, but it was early in the year when I started doing that. And you can hear more or get the book and read and practice. But this is what Prabhupada says in the Journey of Self-Discovery. Srila Prabhupada says at that time, everyone is frustrated because our loving propensity is not being utilized properly. Everybody wants love, everybody's seeking love, and we have love to give, but he says it's not being utilized properly. He states that love is most fully experienced when directed toward the Supreme Personality, Krishna, who can perfectly and completely reciprocate with everyone. And he states this is the secret of lasting happiness. And there was one more point I found. In the book Narada Bhakti Sutra, it states in this commentary, the basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. No one can live without loving someone else. I don't know if you're around when they had those experiments of babies in the hospital, and they were doing this experiment. Those who didn't get touched and held almost shriveled up to die. They just could not exist without that love. It's so. And even plants. I mean, plants are a living organism. Sure, you've read of the experiments with plants. If you ignore it or play hardcore music or something, it shrivels up. So the propensity is there in every living organism. No one, Prabhupada says, no one can live without loving someone else. The missing point, however, is where to repose our love so that everyone can be happy. And he states in the Nectar of Devotion, teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities perfectly by the easy method of loving Krishna. Okay, we have failed to create peace and harmony in human society because we do not know the right method. Okay? So, you've got a taste now, all of this love, and you're saying, I've been trying to work at it. Let's see how Bhaktitirtha Swami presents this particular chapter in this particular book on love. Because I think I went back, at the very beginning, the school of love, he tells us that the soul is made for love. So let's see if we, what he says here. And he tells us that all around us we see the results of the industrial paradigm, focus upon commodities and money, and its worship of fame, power, and control. Now, as a result of that, modern culture does not give human beings or other living creatures the respect that they deserve. Our planet, itself a living being, suffers profoundly from lack of love. As we have seen, we treat the earth and other species of life with such disregard that all around us are appearing symptoms of serious illness. And I'm sure you can name them: floods, famines, earthquakes, droughts, hurricanes, plagues, and others. Now, in addition, instead of relating to other human beings with love, care, and attention, and compassion, we manipulate and exploit them in a vain search for self-gratification. Now, loving relationships are the way to counteract this negativity. Our personal relationships are a microcosm of how we deal with each other on an organizational, national, and global level. You can turn that on. And how we treat other forms of life and the earth itself. Now, healing our planet ultimately depends upon how we relate to one another in the simple interactions of daily life. How are we treating one another in the simple interaction of daily life? By relating to others lovingly, each of us can make a positive difference in our immediate environment. This is something to think about. We all interact with others every day of our lives. Even if we're laid up in a hospital bed, you're interacting. Even if you at home and can't get out or something, you're interacting. Somebody's going to be coming into you to care for you or check on you. You're interacting. So by relating to others lovingly, each of us can make a positive difference in our immediate environment. We just read, Prabhupada said, we're putting the love in the wrong place, Our love begins with Krishna, and from there the others come. In society today, many people do not experience sufficient love in their families, schools, or places of work. Love that cannot find a healthy means of expression often emerges in various perverted forms. We have already noted the rising levels of child abuse, incest, rape all around us, as well as many other social and environmental ills. Whenever people reject their own divine nature, their tortured, loving energy becomes a destructive force in the world. I want you to go to page 51, I noted, in this book. Now, we've been through many of this, but so many points came back to mind when I was reading from this chapter. And I don't mind bouncing back and forth, and I'm sure, faithfully, you won't mind bouncing back and forth with me. Because it's just to inspire us and to regenerate thoughts, loving thoughts. This is what he told us in chapter 2 in this book, Spiritual Warrior 2. And the title of that chapter is What is Love? What a fantastic chapter. He says that all of us want to be loved with unconditional, eternal love. A love that sees beyond beauty, intelligence, or any other superficial quality. We want to be loved simply because we are. At the same time, we all have a natural, innate tendency to share our love with others. Now, this preoccupation with love arises because in reality we are eternal, loving beings whose souls are filled with knowledge and bliss. This preoccupation with love arises because in reality we are eternal, loving beings whose souls are filled with knowledge and bliss. And that's not new if we've been studying Bhagavad Gita and Srila Prabhupada's books and listening to these books of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, constantly reminding us we are eternal beings. In this physical embodiment, we are temporarily covered by material energy. But our nature is inherently divine. And we are always seeking the blissful love of the spiritual kingdom where our real fulfillment lies. I couldn't keep going. I wanted to take you back to that. He then tells us that this planet will not be healthy until we gain a deeper understanding of the soul and the universal love we all share. As parts and parcels of God, we naturally belong to a culture of love, liberation, and constant celebration. Here I had another reference that came to mind when he states, until we gain a deeper understanding of the soul and the universal love we all share. Now, I don't know, hopefully all of you out there are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. And I want to go there for this point. It just took me back to a section that I had read, what was it, 2 weeks ago, when I gave class. This chapter 2, you know it, when Arjuna gets so frustrated and upset and he doesn't want to fight and he's going to throw his weapons down. And Krishna, what? It said, smiled and reminded him, you call yourself an intelligent man and you don't know the difference between what's spiritual and what's material. And then what does he do? He begins to explain to him about the soul. Those sections are so, if you haven't read them recently. But this is the one that I want to share because the purport had something that was important to me at the stage of life that I am. But the verse itself, this is chapter 2, text 20. So these texts on the soul are really, and it'll help you. I remember when I first came into the Institute and was hearing about the soul and started reading, it was like exciting getting to know who I really am. And that's what it's about. So this text states, for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He's not slain when the body is slain. Now, I'm not going to read the whole purport. I'm just going to read the excerpt that I shared on that 84th birthday of mine. It says, and because the soul has no birth, this is Prabhupada's purport, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. That is, there's no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. That's comforting when you're getting up there. But it should be comforting your whole life. This so-called old man, old woman, therefore feels him or herself to be in the same spirit as in his or her childhood or youth. The changes of the body does not affect the soul. Okay? I'm going to stop there. You want more? Chapter 2, and this was verse 20, but this section on the soul. And it'll give you a sense, a taste of what this is all about, how life is worth living, and who you really are, so you don't get hung up so much in the bodily concept. You know, that was what I read. That's why sometimes I have so much fun, even though this body is aching like mad, because it's really, I'm understanding how much that what I'm feeling, the aches and pains, it's not. My soul doesn't feel that. And it's really alive and vital. Okay, let's continue with loving chapter on loving on. Any questions, any comments up to this point?
Bhuvan Mohan has just been typing out what you're reading.
Okay. Anybody else joined him?
Shruti and Bhakti and Carol are still online.
Okay, Shruti and Bhakti and Carol, welcome. Thank you for being there. So we go on. He says now, okay, as parts and parcels of God, that's what we are, we naturally belong to a culture of love, liberation, and constant celebration. That brings what come up, constant, and an attitude of gratitude every day. When we extend this love and joy to others, we experience ever deepening levels of God's love. As you give, so shall you receive. You've heard that. The world sorely needs a deeper sense of community and a more mature understanding of personal happiness, both of which depend on our willingness to raise individual and collective consciousness by sharing our love with others. So spiritual warriors, you have chores to do, service to do. But as you raise your personal, you can give it to others. He gives an example, an analogy, if you will. Consider the community of a tree. Although the leaves of a tree require water, we do not need to water every leaf individually. In fact, if we water only the leaves and neglect the roots, you know what will happen. The tree will not survive for very long. But if we water the roots, we distribute water throughout the entire tree so that the tree thrives quite nicely. Now, although we may consider ourselves self-sufficient, we are actually no more self-sufficient than the leaves of a tree. The nourishment we need is love. And by directing our love toward God, we water our roots and naturally distribute love throughout the entire community. Quite a responsibility. Materialism is rooted in duality. It is relative and impermanent. The material aspects of things are not their inner reality. And the materialistic viewpoint focuses on the outer manifestations without paying attention to the invisible essence. We cannot have meaningful, deep relationships by dealing merely on the level of our outer coverings. A materialistic focus automatically disqualifies us from experiencing a deep level of love. When I read that line, something flashed in from Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna is talking to Arjuna, he's so worried about the bodies of his family and he doesn't want to kill them at all. And Krishna says they're already dead. So you can't have, and this is what he was saying, the difference between material and spiritual. He at that moment was having a materialistic focus. And then Krishna started teaching him about spirituality, and that's when he said, you're my teacher. And that's why we all do need a teacher. So remember, loving others unconditionally is not based on material understanding of life, because ultimately All love emanates from the reservoir of love, which is God. If we exclude God from the picture, we're merely attracted to material commodities and phenomena. We cannot experience unconditional love. Now, as we grow spiritually, and this is really, we want to have that desire and prayer. I want to grow spiritually. I want to understand on a deeper level. I want to love God. And all of this, as you're hearing it, you may be thinking, how will that be? I can't do that. Just have the desire to want to experience it and to reach that level. God, Krishna, fulfills all desires. So, and then you grow spiritually, as he's saying, as we grow spiritually, we will be constantly amazed at the amount of love we can experience and share. The spiritual world is filled with eternal, loving exchanges that do not end, deteriorate, or disappoint. Even minor competitions and arguments in such an environment merely serve to encourage more caring and sharing. Now, we have all known of mothers who would sacrifice anything for their children, teachers who would go to any length to help their students, or husbands totally dedicated to the welfare of their wives and families. These simple examples of selfless relationships in the material world offer us glimpses into the spiritual realm of genuine love. So it's a part of us. It's just that we have to watch out for the material energies. They don't pull us away. As we saw in the previous chapter, if conflicts arise in intimate relationships, instead of producing a rift, they can cause even stronger bonding between the parties. The individuals understand one another better, and this deeper understanding allows mutual caring and respect to grow. He now tells us genuine love, genuine, remains constant despite adversity. Genuine. What does genuine mean? Really real, for want of another expression. Love gives us the courage to maintain our position, even an unpopular one, in any environment. Gives us the courage to deny unpleasant reality is to deny, courage to maintain our position, even an unpopular one, in any environment. This does not mean that we should be foolish or naive. To deny unpleasant realities is to express the opposite of love. True love is based on honesty and trust, not avoidance. To love our neighbors as ourselves means to love them deeply as we ourselves would like to be loved. It also means to trust them. Honesty draws honesty to itself. And trust attracts trust. Without these qualities, there is no love. And I'm thinking, I wish I could read your mind where you are right now in hearing these words. But listen what he tells us. On a practical level, we may wonder how to love an apparently unlovable person, or how to trust someone who has not earned our trust. So he read our minds, huh? We can approach such a person as we would a troublesome child. Parents normally do not adapt their conduct to that of the child. Instead, they help the child improve by modeling proper behavior and encouraging what is positive. After all, everyone has some good quality. I remember Bhakti Tirtha Swami used to tell us all, look for the good, no matter what the behavior is and whatever's coming from that other person. And the parent, they help the child improve by modeling proper behavior and encouraging what is positive. Parents know their children's boundaries and are realistic about what is dangerous for them. They offer experiences according to their children's level of maturity, encouraging them to grow and protecting them from demands that might be too taxing. Now you see how he's comparing this to a child. When we have, as you call a practical level, how to love and appreciate an unlovable person, or how to trust someone who has not earned your trust. And he's giving a wonderful example here, which means, though, that we have to have the maturity to understand what's going on. And I think it's coming up about a cry for love in the next section. And be able to not react to that, but respond from a loving place. If we've gotten ourselves centered in God and feeling His reciprocation of love, we may not like what's going on, but it doesn't mean we have to react. He tells us if we refuse to view others as enemies, even if they try to hurt us, we can love almost anyone. If we refuse to view others as enemies, even if they try to hurt us, we can love almost anyone. He emphasizes here, we must always remember that our so-called enemies have a desperate need for love, which they are expressing as best they know how, albeit in a negative way. As spiritual warriors, all right, we've gotten that clear, what our weapons are, what our objective is, what our battleground is. As spiritual warriors, we always have a choice in these circumstances. We can respond with compassion, or we can view these troubled people as enemies who have our destruction in mind. In the latter case, we become destructive ourselves because we are categorizing others as harmful agents. But if we can see them simply as misguided seekers of love, we can remain loving and communicate that love in non-threatening ways. How much work do we have to do on ourselves to reach that level? But it's possible, and that's what can help situations change. He says we cannot love those whom we do not trust. So, how do we extend our love and trust to untrustworthy people? Naturally, we do not want to victimize ourselves or others by ignoring their negative behavior. So as he's saying to us, it's not about ignoring or to deny unpleasant reality. We have to have that essence of love and know that essence of love within us and work on ourselves. Because many times we have to forgive ourselves for something we think we did wrong, you know. So he says, we simply, is reminding us that we do not want to victimize ourselves or others by ignoring their negative behavior. He tells us we simply must be intelligent enough, one, to know their limitations, two, supporting their positive characteristics, is good in everyone. And supporting their positive characteristics, and three, refusing to provide temptations they cannot resist. What does that mean? We would not leave treasured possessions within reach of a thief, but if we secure our valuables, we can trust the thief even in our own home. We can trust alcoholics not to drink if we remove alcohol from their surroundings. In other words, we trust others by understanding their boundaries, removing temptations, and communicating our love. If we are clever enough to have a realistic view of their weaknesses, we can nurture their strengths to the point that they can even overcome their negative behavior. This is how, in the proper frame of mind, we can trust virtually everyone. And I'm going to stop there. It's always when I read and reread, and I've been reading this and studying this, how deeply I feel that Bhakti Tirtha Swami takes us into becoming spiritual, true spiritual beings. Knowing we are spiritual beings, but becoming that being and living it and helping others with it. So I'm going to end here. Is there any questions, any comments at this time?
Yeah, there's a question from Carol. What are the non-threatening ways? You were just talking about, cannot love those.
What is she asking?
Let me see.
It's not clear.
It's not clear to me. But Bhuva Mohan asks, we cannot love those whom we do not trust. Then where do we draw boundaries of self-protection and still be loving? Isn't that love somewhat abbreviated and less than total?
We cannot love those whom we do not trust. How do we extend our love and trust untrustworthy people? Is that what you're asking, Bhuvan? Because he tells us we don't want to victimize ourselves and others by ignoring their negative behavior. But he says we must be intelligent enough to know their limitations. We must be intelligent enough to know their limitations, but supporting their positive characteristics. And as we're human beings, there has to be some positive characteristic if we look hard enough, deep enough, and really desire. And then he says, refusing to provide temptations they cannot resist. Does that help? What is this question again?
Question, we cannot love those whom we do not trust. Then where do we draw boundaries of self-protection and still be loving? Isn't that love somewhat abbreviated and less than total? I guess he's asking if there are boundaries, and sense of self-protection, isn't that love somewhat abbreviated and less than total?
No. Not based on what we're being given here, and based on our consciousness and understanding of, again, who we are and who God is in our relationship with Him. And he's telling us that you're going to meet these people and have. But I'll just read again what he states, which it sounds like is the answer to your question. He tells us, naturally, we do not want to be victimized. So he says we must be intelligent enough to know their limitations. That's intelligent enough. What are their limitations? And then intelligent enough, supporting their positive characteristics. It's something they're positive. And refusing to provide temptations they cannot resist. Does that help? Because he tells us as spiritual warriors, we always have a choice. In these circumstances, we can respond with compassion, or we can view these troubled people as enemies who have our destruction in mind. Now, in the latter case, we become destructive ourselves because we are categorizing others as harmful agents. But if we see them simply as misguided seekers of love, they too are seeking love, we can remain loving and communicate that love in non-threatening ways. How's that, Bhuvan? And then he tells us, of course you have to be mindful and you don't want to be victimized. But if you can see this behavior as a cry for love and misguided, they're seeking love but in a misguided way, you can remain loving. So you've first got to be loving, and this is what he's telling us here. Yes.
So Carol wants to know, what are those non-threatening ways?
What did I say? Non-threatening?
Yeah, you just read that.
Okay. If we can see them simply as misguided seekers of love, we can remain loving and communicate that love in non-threatening ways. Non-threatening ways is to take on, react to their behavior and think that they're out to destroy us and are our enemies. That's where he tells us about the enemies. If we see them as our enemies, then we're going to act in a certain way. So you can't really communicate in a threatening way. Communicate love. And this is what he's trying to tell us. If we refuse to view others as enemies, even if they try to hurt us, we can love almost everyone. So we have the choice as a spiritual warrior to respond with compassion and view these troubled people as, or view them as enemies. So non-threatening is to show compassion. Does that help? That's what I feel he's saying here. Communicate that love in non-threatening ways.
Because I think she was asking maybe specifics.
Huh?
Specific gestures or...
You have any? Can you go to that?
Oh, I just thought of a situation where I was with with Bhakti Tirtha Swami at a book signing, and there was a man who came late for the program, and he was very irritated about the whole program.
Can they hear you?
Yeah.
Okay.
The man was very irritated about the program, and he seemed very frustrated. He wanted to know what we were doing there and why we were there. So he approached Bhakti Tirtha Swami and asked him very troubledly, "Who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you here? Where are you from?" And Bhakti Tirtha Swami, with a big smile and so much love, told the man, "Well, really, I just live out of my suitcase, and I'm just visiting here." And so it like diffused that whole anger that was coming from the man, and I just saw that as a gesture of love, where he didn't come forward in that threatening way that the man was coming forward.
Did you hear that, Carol? Carol? You understand? That's an example she's giving of non-threatening. Because see, if you're full of love, and you've chosen love over fear, thinking back to the last chapter, so you're fearless, you're full of love, you trust, and that love you know is coming from God. You have faith in God, you trust Him, and yet you know there are others who are so covered they're not feeling this love, and we've said that we genuinely are made for love and to give and receive. If you're in that consciousness, whatever the situation is, comments, behavior, you will respond from that loving place. If it's even to say in a very loving way, "That's enough. I don't want to hear any more of that." Or it may be time, I think it's time for you to leave. But it's not, "You better get out of here or I'll," that's... But if you're coming from love and let that person know, that's enough. And yet you're knowing and recognizing, as he said, this behavior is really a cry for love. Does that help? Because he mentions we become destructive if we, react to it, but we can respond with compassion and view that troubled person not as an enemy, but one seeking love. And that means maturity in our own spiritual lives and daily lives. Does that help, Carol?
Yes, she says. And then she's also asking if we show love to those we don't trust by sharing Srila Prabhupada's books, the holy name, inviting them to the temple. Is that another way of, like, we can do that also, right?
You can do that as long as they're not antagonistic to the books or even hearing about God, Krishna. That you have to use your own discrimination. Or it may be just to say, God bless, and leave. And let them go. Or let them know you will not at this time tolerate any more nonsense. And that's not threatening, that's taking care of your own condition. Okay? Any more questions, comments? Who's left online?
Everybody's so...
Yeah, that's Bhuvan Mohan, Shruti, Carol, nobody else. On my street, staunch spiritual warriors. Oh, before I forget, next weekend is holiday weekend. Here at Alachua, we're having 24-hour kirtan. They're going to be doing 2 Friday and Saturday, 12-hour days of kirtan. And I hear some big names are coming and all. So it's a holiday weekend. So we're going to take a holiday weekend, the day. I'd probably go to the temple. It'll probably be broadcast on the webcam camera, and everybody can join in. So if you have Spiritual Warrior 2, take it out. Continue reading this Loving Your Neighbor chapter, or go back to the very first chapter, The School of Love. That's a good one. We did that too online. And begin to get the sense of love that he's talking about. It's our natural beingness and how we can imbibe it and practice it in our daily lives. And it come out, and who knows how many people you can help, or help to feel better about themselves or their lives. Okay, so you're going to have, 2 weeks to practice your loving, wonderful selves. And I thank you for coming, participating. And again, if anything comes up that you didn't discuss tonight or talk about or feel you want to share, you can reach me at Mother Indrani 108 at gmail.com. And I'll do my best to respond to you. All right? Have a wonderful week and a lovely weekend next week, and keep chanting the holy name. That's the love, and it'll deepen the love within you. Hare Krishna. Good night, all.